Hey, Recovery fam, it's Josh with the Unashamed Recovery Podcast. No Drew today, just Josh. Not even really an episode, it's just me sitting here getting off with some of these ideas in my head and just wanted to share with y'all. Driving around my car yesterday, listening to K-Love, and I heard one of the pastors who they do that little 1 minute of encouragement segment, and he was on there talking about time in Exodus when Moses was taking too long and the Israelites panicked and they went and they built a golden calf. And I started thinking about that. And I know that's not what this verse means, but I started thinking about how many times do we as recovering addicts, how many times do we do that same thing? And so I started thinking about that. I just wanted to share that with you. A lot of times, God pulls us from addiction. We get into recovery. We're sober. We're on fire. We're praying every day. We're reading our Bible. We're doing our devotions. We're having reading plans. We're getting together in small groups. We're watching YouTube videos. We're watching Stephen Furtick or Craig Rochelle, all those, we're getting fed the word. And, a lot of times it seems like kind of God has us by the hand and he's just leading us on and he's telling us our next step. And it seems like we're just right in a line with God and we're on fire and everything's perfect. But, eventually it almost seems like God becomes distant and God is silent and he's absent. He's no longer answering our prayers like he was. He's no longer telling us our next step or which way to go. It's almost, we're facing the bad alone. And, and just because we're a Christian doesn't mean we're not going to face the bad. There's a verse here in Isaiah, I think it's Isaiah chapter 45, and it says, I am the Lord, and there is no other. I form the light and create darkness. I bring prosperity, and I create disaster. I, the Lord, do all these things. And so there's proof right there. God is in the middle of the bad as much as he's in the good. But sometimes we get in between our two ears and we start to think, and we think that just because we're going through a bad season, oh no, I've done something and I'm away from God now. And that's just not the case. But we panic. Just like this verse here in Exodus 32, we panic. And here's what that verse says. When the people saw that Moses is delayed to come down from the mountain, the people gathered themselves together to Aaron and said to him, make us gods who shall go before us. As for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him. So Aaron said to them, take off the rings of gold that are in the ears of your wives and your sons and your daughters and bring them to me. So all the people took off the rings of gold that were in their ears and they brought them to Aaron. And he received the gold from their hand and he fashioned it with a graving tool and made a golden calf. And they said, these are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt. When Aaron saw this, he built an altar before it. And Aaron made a proclamation and said, tomorrow shall be a feast to the Lord. And they rose up early the next day and offered burnt offerings and brought peace offerings. And the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. And then in that next verse, that's when Moses comes down from the mountain, and we all know what happened from there. But I know that's not what this verse is talking about, but it was a sharp reminder to me because so many times, and I'm guilty of this as much as anybody, I'm going along in my recovery, I'm going along in my sobriety, and the first bit of trouble that I hit, I think, oh no, God has abandoned me. Let me return to that old way. I'm so quick to panic, and I result back to that old destructive behavior. It's comfort. I'm seeking an answer. I'm not hearing an answer. And so my first instinct is to result back to what gives me comfort in that time. So I'm making a small g God out of my addiction. I'm going back to it just because I'm not hearing from God, because I'm not seeing God present in my life, because it seems like God's not telling me my next way to go. And man, we all do it. And it's very easy for us to get trapped into that cycle over and over and over. And when we do that, we're not growing. We're not continuing our recovery growth. We're getting stuck in this cycle, and we're just living on autopilot. We're just continuing on. It's important for us to remember that God is never going to leave us. He's with us in the good and the bad. And even in those times where it seems like God is taking too long, or He's not listening, or He's not answering, He's still there. We're just on His time, not ours. So stay the course, keep pressing on, and you're going to get to see why God made you wait. Guys, that's all the time I've got for the day. I hope this has been a blessing for somebody out there. If not for anybody out there, I know it was a blessing for me. I needed to hear this. And so, but that's all I got. I love y'all. And we have a brand new episode coming out Monday, March the 1st. That's 3 days away. So be looking for that. But other than that, guys, I love y'all. And remember to be unashamed.